Welcome to Brain Info Live, for everyone in the brain health community. Brain Info Live is about hope, health, support, education, and you. Whether you're living with Alzheimer's or a caregiver, family member, or loved one of someone who is, Brain Info Live is here for everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our 16th, I'm still amazed, our 16th episode of Brain Info Live. I am your host, Mike Kincaid. Just for the record, I am the Director of Diversity Recruitment for the Massachusetts Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, but I'm also the grateful, humble host of Brain Info Live Boston. And today's episode is going to look a little bit unusual to all of our regular, viewers. You know how we usually roll, but today we're going to be talking about brain donation and caregiving and how the two combine. And we've got such a jam-packed show that J. Lou is taking a break today. He's going to be with us on the next episode, which is October 27th. But for today, we're gonna do some interviews, both live and taped, about brain donation and caregiving. And so I just want to jump into it because this is just going to be an exciting show. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce my guest today, Dr. Frank Willard. Frank, I'm about to butcher your bio here, so you'll be able to fill in the blanks for me. Dr. Frank Willard is the course director for the medical I knew I wasn't going to get this right. Anyways, course and medical anatomy course at the University of New England College of. I'll let you get to that too. The University of New England accepts approximately 60 to 70 donations, and I'm going to say brain donations, per year, and use them for educational purposes in their anatomy and neuroanatomy courses. Frank, thanks for hanging out with us. Before we get into our questions and our conversation, fill in the blanks. Share the words that I've been practicing all day and have been butchering for me. Tell us about the courses.
Okay. Yeah. I have a PhD in neuroanatomy, and I received that from the University of Vermont College of Medicine, and I did a postdoc at Ohio State University. And I came to the University of New England in 1983 to develop. It was a young university at the time to develop a neuroanatomy course in the medical program, the osteopathic medical program. I've been here ever since, involved with this program. More recently, I have become the discipline director for anatomy in the medical college, and I'm in charge of what we now call the donor course. And we call it that in honor of the people who are principal in it. And these are the people who donate their corporal remains to the university for use by the medical students, the year one medical students in their dissection program. We do take about 60 to 70 donations a year. They're donating their entire corporal remains, that is their entire body, to the university. We use them in the medical anatomy course. As I said, we call it the donor course. Essentially, these people are the medical student's first patient, and we use them for their education. They do remove the brain, but they don't really study it in that course. Beginning of their second year as medical students, I have them for 6 weeks, and they do a neuroanatomy course where they do study the organization of the brain.
Okay, all right. Well, let's jump into brain donation. And I find this interesting because I didn't realize that a person basically donates the whole body. But how is brain donation different from the organ donations that we hear about all the time? Because you always hear, don't donate your heart and save a life. So how is brain donation different?
Well, with brain donation, you're not taking the brain to try to use it as a supplementary organ for somebody else. What you're doing is either, if you're donating the entire body, then chances are it's going to be used to teach medical students, and the brain will be used in that way, in educational fashion. If you're donating just the brain, it is possible to remove the brain without doing any cosmetic changes to the rest of the head, at least to the face, so that they can still take the person through a full funeral. But the brain is then usually put into a brain bank someplace that will, based on the disease that the individual had at the time of death, though that tissue can be accessed by researchers studying that particular disease. So there, the donation is not directly for student education, but the donation would be to help researchers understand better the disease process that was going on in that patient.
So
Typically,
let me jump in. So actually, no, I'm sorry. Go finish your thought.
Yeah, typically, if you were, say, to donate a heart, they're getting the heart immediately, and they're trying to maintain that tissue alive so they can transplant it to somebody else. A kidney, the same concept. You're maintaining the tissue alive so you can transplant it. Brain transplantation has not reached that level yet. So it's either education or research.
Only in science fiction. But since you mentioned research, in a way, by donating your brain, you are helping to save a life, because you're helping research cure something for the future.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's maybe a little bit more distant in the future, but it's not. So it's not as if it's being transplanted right to another person directly, but it's helping generations and has a more widespread. Rather than think of it, I'm helping one person, you're really helping an enormous range of individuals, because the information they can glean from your brain and the disease process that you may have is going to help them cure that disease down the road and influence many, many people.
So let's stay on that topic, because we know what we know about Alzheimer's because of brain autopsies.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other types of diseases that brain autopsies have helped science learn more about?
Oh, yeah. There's a wide range of degenerative diseases in the nervous system. In terms of dementias, this PICS dementia, frontal temporal dementia. There's a whole series of different dementias which we still know very little about exactly what they're doing. Yet we're gaining information on this through the process of brain donations and experimenting on the brain, looking for different biochemical changes that may be ongoing. Outside of the direct field of a dementia, tremendous amount was learned about diseases that affect the motor system, such as Parkinson's disease and Huntington's disease. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis is another one where biopsies of both brain and spinal cord have been invaluable in understanding what's going on in that disease. So it's a wide range of diseases that, and they're not necessarily all degenerative in nature. There are a number of metabolic diseases, which again, we need to understand the chemistry of what's happening if we're ever to interrupt it and to alter the course of the disease.
Okay, all right. So see, you are saving a life by helping you learn more.
Saving many lives.
Many lives. So I about 20 years ago, it was the first time I started learning about brain donation. I had a conversation with a particular doctor, and one of the questions, and it's in his intake team, and one of the questions I asked is, when do you bring brain donation up to a family? And I'll never forget this. The team looked and said, "Oh, well, Mike, when the person is signing up to participate in research, that's when we bring up the conversation." And my first thought was, I don't think that's the right time to ask me to give Nan his brain to you. When if we got to have a relationship before you make that ask. When do you guys and how do you guys make the ask?
Yeah, there are several ways that we have a particularly robust program in the state of Maine, and there are since I have been here, and that's 40 years. I have seen we're coming up on 2,400 whole body donations to the program. The way in which it's usually done is we have flyers available, and they're distributed to nursing homes. They're distributed to long-term care facilities, places where people generally are in the retirement phase, and they're beginning to think about how do they want to have their funeral organized, and they're beginning to think about how to tie up loose ends in their life and what have you. These flyers describe the program, and then we rely on them to contact us, and we give them a description of what it involves. We have had outreach community efforts where we go to nursing homes and the like to meet with people and describe what some of the possibilities are for them. I think probably one of the better ones for us has been we do a memorial service each year for the families of the people who have donated. And on that, it's usually done towards twilight on a Saturday afternoon, late afternoon. And we have it's outdoor ceremony. We have a small plot it's in a little bit of a pine forest area on the campus, on a little bit of a slope. And we've got an internment site in there that's very immaculately taken care of with flowers and some stones around it. And we intern the bodies, the cremains of the individuals that do not want them back, the families don't want them back. We put those cremains in this internment site. And we bring the families on, and we hold a service, and the students get to talk to, we have maybe 5 or 6 students get up and describe what it meant to them to have the interaction with their loved ones, what they learned from them, how important that is in their training, and how much they gained from it, both in terms of knowledge and also in terms of their growth experience in their life of doing this entire dissection. And that usually spreads out in the community, that information, and that will precipitate a lot of inquiries into the program, especially hearing the students describe what they experienced.
That is such a touching way to say thank you. Because that's what you're doing. You're saying thank you.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's the students. It is known because of a couple programs that had to close and educate students without doing the full dissection, that a student that has gone through the full dissection does better on the floors, the hospital floors, dealing with people who have terminal illness, that are significantly ill and are dying. That students that have been through this process have a much better way of communicating with the patient. They've seen more, and it's so there's a benefit that is well beyond just the knowledge that they gain. It's intrinsic in the dissection program.
I love how you're dancing around just simply saying they get better bedside manner.
Yeah. In that environment. In that
Yeah.
environment, yes.
Yeah, I can see that. So I'm going to pivot here. I'm going to share with you what you know, and a lot of our audience knows, is that people of color are traditionally underrepresented in research, especially research regarding dementia and Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. So I guess my question is, and when it comes to brain and body donation, does that continue, or do you see more? Do you see a lot more people, diverse populations in brain donation than that participate in research? That's two questions. I just realized it.
Yeah. I think you're correct. In an area like Maine, the people of color are underrepresented as far as donations go, but it reflects their underrepresentation in the population, which in the state of Maine is changing. So I anticipate that down the road we will see change. I think you'll get a better representation if you're looking more into the cities, where you have, especially large cities, where you're getting more diverse population in the cities. Then you'll probably see a better representation that way. I will say that having been in dissection scenarios here in Germany, in Brussels, and in a number of places in the United States, to a great extent, well, certainly with term to brain, once you have taken the brain out of the body, there's no way to tell, race or color or anything of that nature on that tissue. So once it gets to the point of the brain has been removed, you cannot look at it and identify a race that it came from or a color.
You know what, Frank? We should put that on a T-shirt, because, well, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but I'm going to say thank you for sharing that. So again, I know if I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself, does your brain have to have some kind of disease, or in other words, do you accept all kinds of brains, or does the brain have to be healthy, or does it have to have a particular ailment? I guess this is a way of saying, what kind of brains you looking for?
Yeah. Essentially, the brain, all kinds of brains. That would be the bottom line to that. If someone has a particular disorder that is affecting the central nervous system, then clearly that brain is invaluable in terms of research. It's also invaluable in terms of teaching. If we can identify that when we're removing the brain and show the students the location of a stroke, the location of a tumor, or the change in shape in the brain that's associated with dementia, then that's an amazing thing for a student to see, because autopsies are not done that much anymore around the country. So once you're a medical student, you leave the first or second year, you don't see that kind of thing again in your training. Normal brains are invaluable, both in education, being able to take a brain out that is normal and use it to show the students what normal anatomy looks like, but also in terms of research. You need the baseline. So no, there isn't it isn't as if you have to have a disease to get in the program. It's the normal is as appreciated as the abnormal.
I like that. All right, let's talk culture, because I do know that there are some religions, there are some cultures where the idea of organ donation is just not going to be discussed. How do you deal with that?
Maine has, well, I'd have to take it from the point of view of Maine, the state of Maine. And
right.
Here, cultural diversity is on the increase. And we're not in the position of going out and telling people that they really should donate. They have to actually reach that point of within themselves, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to participate in. I would like to help future generations, basically is the question that we get. I won't forget an elderly woman at one of the memorial services getting up and coming to me after the service was over. And she said, she now, after listening to these young medical students describe what they got from the program, she said, I want to do this. And she had made that transition. If you have a religious preference, which says that you can't in any way allow parts of your body to be used, then we're not going to go there and try to dissuade you of that preference. That's yours, and that's the way you look at your life. And it's not for us to talk you out of that. So you have to come to that in yourself. Realize, I want to do this. I want to give of myself to future generations.
You know, Frank, we've been rolling, and I've been meaning to ask you this, but this has been such a great conversation. If folks want to learn more about you and your institution, how do they find you?
The institution is the University of New England, and it is at, I believe it's www.une.edu. Now, there is it's UNE for University of New England and EDU for education. There is a University of New England in Australia. So there are two of us. We're not related in any way, but it is possible to get on the wrong site. But we're in Biddeford, Maine. So and the programs are described at that location.
So recently I had a chance at a town hall to have a conversation with an amazing woman who's been in research now for 10 years. And in fact, her daughter is the one that's coming up next in the tape interview. And Miss Vivian, we got into brain donation. And her daughter, Miss Vivian, I'll never forget, Miss Vivian said, when I get to heaven and meet God, I'm going to want all my parts with me. Because I want to be exact, I want the parts that he gave me. I guess is a trick question. So how do you, I believe my response was, God's going to accept you as you are. But that's not an uncommon, in all my years of, doing community engagement, I've heard that before as the excuse for not donating an organ. How do you, how do you come?
Yeah. I am not going to attempt to talk somebody into donation. That's inside. That's inside of them. We get an awful lot of people who have illnesses one way or the other, and they want to donate because they want people to benefit from their suffering. They want people in the future to gain, even if they want students to understand what they went through by looking at their body, looking at the condition in their body. Students learn what kept them alive, and then they learn what ended their life. When they study that, makes them better physicians. So when a person says they've got a religious preference and they want to keep themselves together, then, as I said, that's really up to them to make that decision. We'll help them as soon as they arrive at the conclusion that they want to be part of this program. And as I said, many people want to do it because they've suffered through something in their life, and they're hoping that they can help future generations not go through that same suffer. And that's again, a very personal decision.
All right.
They have to reach that decision with themselves.
And see, and I love that it's not your job to convince them.
Yeah.
Am I right? Okay.
Exactly.
And that's something I want everybody to hear is, it's like I tell people, you cross the threshold and I'll take your hand and walk with you the rest of the way. But I need you to make that first step.
I was a graduate student at the University of Vermont, and I had a lab that had an L shape to it, long hallway in, and then it turned quickly. And I was in the little L-shaped part of it, and I heard somebody outside in the long part. Somebody had walked in, and I went around the corner to see who it was, and it was an elderly man in a little seersucker suit with a straw hat and a cane. And I said, "Can I help you?" And he looked very confused. Somehow he had gotten into the building. And he said, "Yes." He said, "I'm about done with this body, and I want to know where to leave it." And I remember being I was in tears, actually. But I escorted him to the office where he could get the paperwork to do it. But once they make the decision, we'll help.
So Frankie, because you said that, the question that popped in my mind is, how did you get in this field?
Oh, as a kid, I seemed to really like anatomy and seemed to take Gray's Anatomy out of the library and look at it. And then when I got into graduate school, I just kind of gravitated in that direction. Started doing neuroscience, neuroanatomy type of research, and got more and more involved with the teaching of anatomy. But I never really made a decision, said this is exactly what I'm going to do. But every time there was a decision point, I seemed to gravitate in this direction. I'm now 74, and I'm looking back, and I would not change it in any way, and I hope to keep doing it for a while.
And you know what? I'm glad you were there in that L-shaped office, and B, I'm glad you got here. So I'm going to wrap up by asking you what I ask all my guests. Frank, if there's one thing you want folks to remember about this conversation, what would that one thing be?
I think it's the emotion, the feeling that our students get from the experience of working with an individual, even though that individual can't talk to them. I tell them that the individual is opening a contract with them, saying, "Here's my corporal remains. Do with them as you must, but learn from them. Help your colleagues understand and learn. Take that information and help your patients, and then pass that information on to future generations." And hearing the students describe their experience doing that is one of the more remarkable things in my career.
And my takeaway from that is, don't let your patient sacrifice be in vain.
Exactly.
Dr. Frank Willard from the New England School of Medicine. I got to look at this again. The University of New England College in Maine. I want to say thank you for hanging out with us today. And Frank, my offer is, if you've got anything you ever want to share with the folks, you know how to find us. You are always welcome to come back.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, and take care. Wow, that's I loved we just walked through a whole history of him starting out as a child and ending up where he's at, and being able to share that knowledge with the next generation. And the memorial service just sounds like something amazing. I mean, I wish we had video of it if we were able to, because I would have loved to have seen that. So now coming up is we've got a brief video clip, and then an interview that I had the honor of doing with the daughter of the older woman that I shared with Frank just a few minutes ago. We call her Miss Vivian, or Miss Viv. And so I'm gonna stop babbling right now, and I'm gonna say, let's, as I always do, let's go to the videotape, and then we'll talk about this more on the other side.
How can you ever prove that your test works, right? If doctors aren't very good at diagnosing Alzheimer's, and you have a test that's going to diagnose Alzheimer's more accurately, how are you going to know that you were right?
The main way that we get the new brain imaging tests, the brain scans, approved is that people who are terminally ill undergo a brain scan, and then they donate their brain when they pass away. And we compare what we saw in the scan with what we see under the microscope. That's what the FDA requires to get the new Alzheimer's brain scans approved.
He made his decision with you.
Yes, 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 yes. He had made that decision.
How long before he passed did he make that decision?
Oh, it was, I would say about 3 years.
3 years before?
Before he passed. 3 or 4 years before he passed. Yes, he was still, lucid, he was still lucid. When he still was verbal and he still could understand, Dr. Salloway approached him and he said, Jim, he said, I'd like you to help me and many other people. He said, would you consent to be an autopsied? So he kind of looked around and he said, why? Well, of course. He says, is it going to help my family? He says, not only your family, he says, it will help many people. Anything that we could do to help, yes. Anything that we could do.
Dr. Salloway looked straight at my mother and said, Olga, would you consider donating your brain for research? And I was taken aback and immediately teared up. And she said, but of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Why not? If it can help someone, what good is it going to do me? And I was just like shocked because she was just so responsive.
Olga, what's happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow's my birthday.
How old will you be?
102.
What we learned is that patients, and particularly their families, they want to give back. They want to do something. They don't just want to be victims of this disease. They want to fight it. And this is a way that they could do it, is by contributing to research.
All right. So welcome, everybody, once again. And today we have an exciting guest. Her name is Miss Tasha Smith. She is a research study participant, and she's also the daughter of an amazing research study participant. So Tasha, I know who you are, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Let the folks know who you are.
So again, my name is Tasha Smith. I'm a native of Massachusetts, born and raised, and my professional background consists of administration and health education. And I currently serve as the administrator in a high-tech real estate firm. I also had the opportunity to design and develop curriculum for many school systems and provide health education services as well, centered around diabetes care, fitness, and nutrition. And I also have participated in a lot of health education outreach events over the years. About probably 20 years ago, my mother actually introduced me to clinical trials, and it was focused on Boston. So that was like the first time she started, introducing me to clinical trials, or just trials in focus group programs or opportunities, I would say. And I actually participated in one around health education because she knew of my background, and she told me to register for this particular study. And it was like designed around like critiquing advertisement around health education. And, I got compensated at the same time. And that was kind of my introduction to trials and studies and things like that.
Now, again, at the UCB, the Union Capital Boston night, You mentioned you had a fraternal grandmother who had memory issues. Is that the first time that memory loss slash dementia, registered to you?
It was the first time I actually witnessed it and encountered it. It was about, again, 20 years ago. And I had the opportunity to go see my grandmother on my fraternal side in Cincinnati, Ohio. And she was in a nursing home. And prior to that, I had seen her before. And, she would always know who I was in the past when I had taken vacations to see her.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular time, when I went back to her when I was a little older, she had no recollection of me at all. She kept staring at me, and she kept saying, "Your hair is pretty," but she couldn't connect me. And it was a little emotional for me, but it was just so beautiful at the same time to see her. But she knew that, she kept staring at me like she knew who I was, but she couldn't connect me. So that was kind of my experience with it for the first time with a close family member.
So let's shift gears, all right? Because you're gonna make me start crying. So let's shift gears. Let's get. I think it's amazing that you and your mom participate in research. Let's talk a little bit about that. How do you participate in research with your mom?
So the Union Capital Boston study was with Mass General Hospital, correct?
Well, it was. Let me for the folks who don't know, Union Capital Boston is a local organization here in Boston, and we had a town hall with them, and your mom was invited to come on as a research participant because the topic was about research, to be exact, research in communities of color, and you were a surprise guest. who I personally think rocked the house, but that's just me. And it's the first time we got a chance to meet each other. But one of my takeaways is that, okay, so this is a mother-daughter team that are participating in research, which you don't hear too much about. So I guess I'm wondering, how does that work with you two?
Well, we've always had a close relationship. I'm the only girl. I have an older brother. We're 7 years apart. And I've been, the baby of the family. So I've always stayed connected to her. And that's why we've kind of had this great close bond over the years. So as I have aged in my life and my mom's aging, we've kind of taken time to participate in workshops together, cooking demos, whatever I come across to keep, her going. I remember when she retired 12 years ago, we even took a beading class at Michael's just to stay active. We've traveled together. We've done all this stuff for a lifetime. So I found it interesting when I would get certain emails. I would be on email blast list, and I would have all these opportunities, actually, information coming to me on certain events. And I would say, "Mom, do you want to participate?" "Sure, I don't mind."
Now, Mom has been in the memory study, I think about 10 years, right?
Yes.
All right. What do you think about that?
It's been amazing, just to observe her for those 10 years and, see a little decline on year 10. That was kind of amazing because I was able to really follow her closely with the paperwork and the observation piece. And that really, brings it to another level because you can see if there's a decline. You're paying that much attention to your, loved one to see if there's a change or a shift.
I need to let our audience know that the moment for me, they like to say the aha moment, but the moment that blew me away that night that we were doing the town hall was when we talked about brain donation. And Mom, this so touched me, and you know this because I shared this with you. Mom, I'm paraphrasing, but she said, "When I meet God, I want to have all my parts with me." And I was like, I love this woman.
Yes.
But then you gave an excellent explanation about why brain donation is important. So I got to ask you this question. What do you get out of it when it comes to brain donation and clinical trials, since all of it is for research that may not benefit the person who is donating their brain, but it may benefit a loved one? I guess this is the point where I'm asking you, this is your chance to make your pitch for why people should donate their brains.
I think people should pretty much donate their brains due to science. I think that it's a way that communities of color especially have more subjects to, compare healthy brains to maybe a diseased brain. And not a lot of people of color have had the option or the opportunity to participate in some of these type of studies as we age. And it's just really having, an option or evidence to provide with science so that they have other cultures to actually, raise comparisons to when it comes to the aging process to better serve us as we age.
And since you brought it up, as I like to put it, you open the door, so I'm gonna jump through it. Because you participate in research and because I work in this world, I know that mom's attitude of when I meet God, I want the same parts that He gave me with me, seems to be a really big reason a lot of folks of color don't participate in brain donation and or research.
Yes.
We know you and mom are a team. You ever have this conversation with friends?
I haven't. I have a college buddy, and it was about maybe 12 years ago or longer. I could say maybe 13 years ago. We actually went to Body Wars, and it was just amazing to see some of these body parts that were donated to science. It was amazing.
Have you changed your mom's mind about certain things related to your brain health or her brain health?
What can I say? Well, her brain health, I think we have talked about promoting more brain health by incorporating more foods in our diet. That's kind of how mom and me I've been kind of like changing my mind, and she's been changing her mind around that area. We know blueberries enhances the brain health as well. So we've been kind of talking more about incorporating more foods to again make the brain healthier, and it brings up the topic of the brain health. And as far as me, what has changed my mind about certain things related to my health with my mom is just she has this great spirit about herself, and she's really been able to talk to me over the last few months about the importance of calming myself less on my plate, being more peaceful, getting involved in activities that bring me more peace to calm my mind, and learning to enjoy life.
Wait, Tasha, are we talking mom lecturing you on how to calm yourself or how she calms herself?
Calm myself, lecturing me.
So mom's still mom.
Mom's still mom.
And you're still her baby girl.
That's right.
And it's interesting because I've got a question here. Your mom is pretty independent now, and she's pretty engaged in keeping tabs on her health. Like you said, you guys have this, you're still her baby girl. Has she shown fear or denial about growing older? The challenges of growing older?
No, she loves life. Her great niece got married last weekend, and mom was the hit at the table. What? Everybody was over there talking to her all night. So, nope, she's fearless to me. She's fearless.
She is still mom. And yes. As I said, I met her at the town hall, and right then and there, I said, I fell in love with this woman. Part of me was like, man, I got to get her and my mom together. So, and because you mentioned it's important to educate your family and your friends, which seems to stem from your mom. Why do you feel that's important to educate folks?
I feel it's important to educate folks because basically, I feel like the more knowledge you have of a topic area, you become more equipped to deal with the challenges of that particular area, problem, or topic. And I believe when you're equipped and you're knowledgeable and you educate yourself, your family or you yourself is less fearful of what the outcome is. So you try to better understand the condition. Don't be afraid of it. Just become aware of it.
Okay. All right. All right. So here's my final question to you, because we could be doing this all day. So my final question, if there's one thing that you want folks to remember about our conversation, other than the fact that mom is just the thing, if there's one thing you want folks to remember, what would that one thing be?
Do your best to just help them reach better heights when it comes to aging and their memory.
What advice would you give caregivers?
Again, as we spoke earlier, be patient, try to understand what is happening, and try to work through activities, support groups, workshops, work through it. Have family time where you come together and you try to understand things together.
All right. Tasha Smith, caregiver, daughter, amazing woman extraordinaire. I want to say thank you for hanging out with me and the folks on Brain Info Live. I got a feeling we're going to have you back.
Thank you.
And that was, I always say this, that interview was as fun to do as it looked. And Tasha is an amazing person. And we will try and, get her and Miss Vivian to come hang out with us. And you can see why I was just gushing over her. So I wanted to wrap up the last two segments. And I've been sitting here thinking what I wanted to share. And one of the things I will share with everybody is that when we first started putting together this topic, I'm not going to lie, my concern was that this is going to be way too medical, way too technical, and scary, because brain donation isn't something people talk about. It isn't, that's not the dinner time conversation. That's not the, when you're putting together your final thoughts on where you want to go with your life, how does that even come up? And now that I think about that, I should have asked that of Frank and I should have asked it of Tasha. How do you even start the conversation with brain donation? Whether it's the person that's living with a disease or whether it's the family member that wants to pitch it to that person. But it's scary. I mean, let's be honest, this is a scary topic. But I love the fact that both with Frank and with Tasha, that it is personal. The memorial service that Frank does with the families and the students. Again, and I'm going to say to Alexa, if we're able to get a video of something like that, I'd love to show that, because that's personal. And as Tasha was saying, with her and mom and the conversations they have, and I guess where I'm going with this thought is that we need to talk. We need to talk with family. We need to share with them what our wishes are. Years ago, and I've said this before, I got a chance to meet and have a conversation with a person who works in the organ donation field. And I asked this question about, you can sign up and you can get it on your license, your driver's license, that you're an organ donor. And I'll never forget, he said to me, Mike, if you have not sat down with your family and told them that you were an organ donor in advance, you are not an organ donor. Because when it comes time, whether you're donating your brain or whether you're donating a living part of your body, like your heart, your liver, or something, when it comes time for them to harvest the body part, and that's when your family finds out that you're an organ donor, you're not an organ donor, because that's an emotional moment for them, and they're most likely to say no. And when he shared that with me, I couldn't help but think, yeah, This is a conversation that you've got to have in advance before that moment comes, and you're expecting them to agree to something that, as we can see from today, as I said, this is personal. So, all right, I'm done babbling. Let's go to the our poll, because we always do a poll, and this one is interesting. And I just saw this a little while ago. True or false? Brain donation is the same as other organ donations. True or false? Brain donation is the same as other organ donations. And so, while everyone is answering that question, which I got a gut feeling this isn't going to take too long. One of my takeaways also from the conversation with Tasha was that she is determined to allow her mother to remain independent as long as possible. And by encouraging her, and when I say encouraging her, I mean signing up for a beading class at Michael's. Come on, that is so cool. And just as I thought, and then bam, record-breaking time, 100% of everyone got it right. Brain donation is not the same as organ donations. When you donate other living organs, you are passing on immediately a life for a life. But when you donate your brain, you are donating your brain to help future generations. As you heard from Frank, you're helping students get an opportunity to do something that if they didn't have that brain, they wouldn't get a chance to do it. And so, wow. So this has just been an amazing show. We've got some resources as always. So let's, Alexa, let's throw up the resources. And we've got the national resources from the National Institute on Aging, NIA. We've got brain donation, a gift for future generations. I just said that. From New York University's Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. We've got brain donation, what we learned and how it can help you and your family. From the Brain Support Network, we've got brain donations, frequently asked questions, FAQs. And from my hometown and from my home, the Massachusetts Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, we have brain autopsy and donation information. National resources, local resources. We've got some other resources also. If we just pop those up, and we'll see those at the end of the show. And so my closing comments, because I apologize, everybody, we're running a little late, but a little long, but this has just been an amazing show. So my closing comment is, the only way we're going to cure diseases is if we participate in the fight to cure them. And so if you are willing to donate your brain or other body parts or your entire body, have that conversation with your families and loved ones and know for a fact that you are going to be helping future generations. My name is Mike Kincaid. I am your humble host. I thank you for hanging out with us. Check out October 27th. I believe that's in 2 weeks. We are going to have a wild show. And I already know who the guest is, but I'm not going to tell you, but it's an old friend who I love to argue with. So come hang out with us. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you around the neighborhood. Bye-bye.